All right. So, as most of you know, I have been working alone as the director of project management for a couple of years, but now we have a project management team, Melanie and I. And really, our purpose is to take a lot of the work off of the manager's shoulders by doing reserve projects, special assessments, insurance claims, governing documents updates, uh, to free up your time. And when you refer a project to us, with only a couple of exceptions, you will get 5% of the extra billing incurred by that project. So what oh, Melanie, are you changing slides?
Can you see the second slide?
Yes.
Okay.
So really, project management can be broken down into 5 steps: the initiation of the project, the planning of the project, bidding, contracts, budget, etc. Then the execution of the project, and that's often where you work with a construction manager, and then monitoring the project for performance and quality control, and then finally closing out the project, doing the punch list, getting the warranties. And we would walk the project through from the first step to the last. Now, there are times that that we share duties with a construction manager. Next slide, please. Um, and really, a construction manager, the major difference is they're focused on the execution portion of the project, whereas project manager is usually involved at the inception of the project, rather than only at the construction phase, knows the big picture, develops and manages the budget and the entire project plan, and manages schedules, contracts, budgets, logistics. Whereas the construction manager is really focused on the construction. They don't generally take calls from the homeowners. There are a few exceptions to that. And our job is to streamline it. And sometimes this project might be small enough or not complicated enough to require a construction manager. So we would take on those responsibilities as well. And really, next slide, the real purpose of it is to eliminate the time suck, going out to bid, checking on contractor availability, negotiating and reviewing contracts, dealing with the committees, presentations to the board, ton of phone calls, going on site, and the list goes on. And it's just to take those things off of your shoulders and basically streamline the process. Next slide, please.
So what we're asking all managers to do is to, before the end of the year, to review your reserve studies with your boards and have them make a decision on what projects that they would like to focus on for 2023. And then give that information back to Dean and myself. We do understand that some projects the manager may not want to delegate to our team, and that's totally fine. We can be utilized on an as need basis. So if there's like a individual question or some support that you guys need, we're happy to do so. So we have this example for Smile condominiums. And you'll see on a part of the slide the projected reserve projects for 2023, as well as for 2022 and for 2023. So with these projects, they're slated about $700,000 worth of projects. And as you can see with their funding, they have less than 300,000 in the bank. So there's going to be no way that they're going to be able to do all these projects. Also, they may not need to do some of these projects in the upcoming year. So the ask, again, for the manager is to review those reserve studies, and then we're going to have a Google Doc that each manager will be asked to complete. And these are the examples of what's going to be in that spreadsheet. So type of project, the project date per the reserve study, the funding allocation per the reserve study, if you have a preferred vendor, so maybe a vendor that you utilized the last time you did this project, current reserve balance, the question of will a special assessment be considered, will a bank loan be considered, And what kind of priority is this for the board? And then additional notes. So here's an example of this community manager, proactive community manager number 1, and their associations. And this is just, again, for informational purposes. We looked at Smile condominiums, and the board had under the notes section, if you see, the inspection resulted in major concerns related to the decks, stairs, and balconies. So this is a high priority for the board. Will a bank loan be considered? Maybe. The manager, if you don't know, that's totally fine. Will a special assessment be considered? And I'm going from right to left. And that answer is yes, because obviously they don't have sufficient funding to be able to do this project, given the fact that their reserve study balance is 261,000 and change, and this particular project is slated to be almost $300,000. So what we're going to do after we get the information from the managers is, before the end of the first quarter, is circle back with the manager, let them know about what kind of assistance we can help with, and also to check in with the manager if they even want our assistance. For example, maybe you want to oversee the deck and the deck project or the painting project, and that's totally fine. So that will be part of the dialogue that we'll have with the manager at that time. So we'll also give you a estimated timeline for the projects, and if there's any additional action that we need, either from yourself or from the board. And then also to include an introduction letter that the manager can share with your boards about the project management team. This information also is going to be relayed to the accounting department. The accounting department is going to take that information for the reserve projects that the board anticipates completing in 2023 and have that funding per your reserve study incorporated into your financials. And then this just tells you where you'll be able to find this information. We are going to save it on the Y drive under procedures, and it's going to be titled Reserve Study Project Management. And then we can open it up for questions.
I had two comments. One is that the the deck, the elevated deck, SB326, I believe it is. That's something that the project management team is supposed to be handling. So that would be an example of something that must go to the project management team, along with multi-unit insurance claims and
private sewer laterals.
Sewer laterals. Yeah. Also, as part of the budget process, part of the one of the procedures is to advise the CPA of what projects are planned for the following year. So a lot of this work you may or should have already done for a good number of your communities.
And it looks like Penny has a question.
Hello.
Penny.
What about SB 800s? I mean, is this something you guys would consider?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much anything. The project management team. This is a project. This is a procedure for the reserve study projects. But if SB 800 is something that you anticipate in the following year, yeah, you can add that to the list as well.
I have one right now, and I did inquire with Dean a while ago before Melanie came on board, and he did say his load was pretty full. So now that Melanie's on board, I mean, it's something that I really need to get going. So I'll send it to you guys and we can work together. I'm sorry?
We can work on that, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll send you the information. We can work together. Thank you.
Nancy.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I just have a question about to what extent this applies to my situation where an on-site manager And specifically with reference to the sewer lateral project?
You on-site general managers have the leeway on those projects and the deck projects to either bring us on or not.
Well, we did bring you on. I mean,
I know,
you
I know.
signed a contract many months ago.
Right.
So what's the question?
Well, we're waiting on the decision on the video bids, as I recall.
Okay, you and I should talk about this offline, okay?
Mhm.
But
So just to clarify, regardless if you're on-site or portfolio manager, we are asking that you submit the information to us so we can also get the information into your financials. And then, again, we're another resource. So just because you're stating what projects you're planning on doing does not mean that we necessarily have to manage that on your behalf.
Hey,
Re-
Ricky, can you ask the question verbally? Because we're recording this session.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, I have an echo. I just said to clarify, we only need to submit this form for all of our accounts if we want to use their help, correct?
No. We're asking managers to fill in the form for every association. And then we will get back to you and coordinate if you guys want our assistance or not. Without giving us the information is not going to be related to accounting. So that piece with you having your financials being consistent with what the projects you're anticipating to do isn't going to happen unless we receive that information from you guys.
But isn't that our job already as managers to know that?
It's a very good point. Yes, that is part of your job. So this should be something that you're already doing. This is just a way to submit the information to us so then we can see what's going on in terms of big picture for the company, and then be another resource for managers and then tie in the financial piece.
Yeah, just to reiterate, even though Melanie said this about 5 times already, this is going in the financial statements. So this information is going to be reflected in your financial statements, whereas prior, everything that was on your reserve study for the coming year was in your financial statements. But what was happening was that a lot of things that there was no plan or expectation that those items will be done, because there's a lot of things that show up as having 0 remaining years in the reserve study. They were showing up on your financials. So now this will actually be the items that the association is doing. So this is something that needs to be done regardless in the budget process. It needs to be done regardless for the accounting process, but this will give the project management department the ability to have some idea of what kind of projects may be coming down the pike for the following year.
So that actually half answered my question, Paul, what you just said. So this will now, because that has been confusing, just putting everything at a 0 useful life in the report, I think that will no longer happen. The report will now only have the information that we say these are the active projects that we foresee for next year. It won't just have everything at a 0 useful life. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct. And when you say report, it's going to be the financial reporting that we provide on a monthly basis to our boards. We'll only have the items that are actually on the docket.
Right. So for a few months there, we were seeing the expenses and costs for the reserve balance in addition to the operating balance. And I think that had gotten a little confusing. This will supplant that report. That's what I'm hearing.